So do you struggle having to maintain, manage and update WordPress websites, especially if you have quite a few? If you've got one or two, it's pretty simple and straightforward. When you get 5, 10, 15, 20, it does take a lot more time and can be quite time consuming, especially if you have to update the same thing over and over again. What about backups? What about installing new plugins and those kinds of things? All these things take time if you have to do it on multiple WordPress websites. Well, I may have a solution that's going to make your life considerably easier, quicker, and ultimately stress-free. Today, we're going to be taking a look at MainWP. It's a completely free plugin for WordPress. We're going to tie that into some other services, and again, we're going to be using the free options of these so we can do things like uptime monitoring, backup services, and things along those lines. So if you're interested in saving yourself time, easing the whole process of updating your WordPress websites, managing security, and all those kinds of good things, stick around and I'm going to take you through everything right now. Well, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, the channel where I help you get more from WordPress. If you like what we do around here, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon below to become part of the WP crew and be notified every time new content is added. Okay, so let's go through the whole process. I've broken this down into easy steps. Each of those steps is outlined in a timestamp in the description below. So if you want to jump through to any point, jump back, go over anything again, all those options are available for you there. So let's take a look at the first stage, which is go through the process of installing everything. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is how we go through the process of setting up MainWP. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this and they're optional as part of the setup process. So we'll take a look at that in a moment when we move on. But the real thing behind it is there's two ways in which you can set things up. You can set it up on your local computer, so you could set up and use it like with Local by Flywheel or XAMPP or anything that allows you to set up your local computer as a sort of server. Or you can just use a normal hosting account, and that's the method that we're going to take a look at today. The reason I'm choosing this is because it gives me the ability to be anywhere. I can be at a client's, I can be on holidays, I can just be anywhere, and I can access this directly from my server, directly from my hosting account. If I set it up and I only want to operate from my own local setup, then obviously that's a different option. So this is entirely up to you which way you'd want to go about it, but we have those two options during the setup process. So let's just jump over now, install MainWP and set things up, and then we'll move on to the next stage. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and set everything up inside our clean copy of WordPress. Now you can use this in multiple different ways, but what I've done and what I would generally tend to recommend doing is either set up a subdomain or have a domain that's dedicated just to working with MainWP. Just keeps everything clutter free, you don't install plugins to do other things, and you have a nice, clean, simple interface just for dealing with managing your websites. And that's what we're going to be doing. So what I'm going to do is come into the Add Plugin section. I've searched for MainWP, and you can see there are a couple of different options. We've got the MainWP child, which we'll be taking a look at in a few moments when we look at linking this through to another site, and the MainWP dashboard. This is the plugin that we're going to be using to actually do the whole maintenance and management of our WordPress sites. So what we're going to do is click on it, install now, let that download all the files. Once that's completed, we'll go ahead and activate it, and then we can see how we can start setting things up and configuring things to do what we need. So that's downloaded. All we're going to do is click on the activate option, let that activate, and we'll then have a new section that allows us to go through and follow through a very simple wizard that takes us through the whole process of setting these things up. If you don't want to, you can skip straight out of this, or you can do it all manually. However, I would recommend, if you're new to this, to go through the process of letting this guide you through the stages of setting everything up. So you can see we can click on Let's Go, or we can go back to the WP admin, or we can say Not Right Now. If we say Let's Go, we're going to go through this wizard, and we've got 10 different stages we can go through. By the time we finished, we should have everything set up the way we want. Now, the first thing here is, what type of server setup is this? You can set this up to be on a web host, which is what we're going to do, or you could set it up on a local host setup. For this example, I'm going to show you the web host version of it. So we're going to choose that. We'll click on Continue. That then takes us over to the system check, and this is going to go through and make sure that your system, whether that's the local host system or on a web server, all meet the requirements that we need. So you can see a minimum version of PHP, that you've got SSL extensions enabled, and other things on there as well. So making sure that you have all meeting those minimum requirements. If not, you're going to need to contact your hosting company or look at an alternative that's going to meet these requirements. So we've met everything on there. We've passed all that. So the next thing is we can install the MainWP child. So we click on continue. Now this is allowing us to go through and say that we want to install this on our other site. So you can see it gives us a breakdown of what actually goes on. So MainWP requires the MainWP child plugin to be installed and activated on the WordPress site that you want to connect to your MainWP dashboard. In other words, any of those sites that you want to connect and manage through MainWP has to have that plugin installed. Now, we don't need to worry about that right now. We can take a look at adding that, and I'll show you that manually afterwards so you can see exactly how to do it. So we'll say MainWP child is installed. So we say OK on that one. And then the next thing is it says we can now connect our first child site if we want to. So this is going to ask us a couple of different questions, and providing we have a site that has this information set up on it and the plugin is installed, we can fill out the details on here and we can match everything up, and then we can move on with our first site installed. Now I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to just continue past this, and it's going to take us on to the next stage. So we can click on continue, and you can see it says what type of hosting is the MainWP dashboard site on. In other words, what is this version, not the child version, what is it on? A shared hosting environment, a virtual private server, VPS, or a dedicated server. So we're on a shared hosting environment for this example, but obviously you need to choose whatever is applicable to your specific circumstances. So we say shared hosting. How many child sites are you planning to manage? In other words, how many sites do we want to take control of? Is it going to be less than or more than 50 websites? So again, meeting your requirements, choose either less than or more than. For me, this is just a demo site, so I'm going to say less than 50 sites. And I'm going to click on continue. Obviously, you can, if you want to, you can skip any of these stages, or you can jump back at any point if you want to go back and make changes to anything you put in there. Hit continue. That's going to go through now to the optimization. So this is just going to go through and tweak things to make sure that we get the best user experience when working with MainWP. So this is just saying this allows the MainWP dashboard to automatically update the MainWP child plugin wherever or whenever a new version is available. So this is something you ultimately want to say yes to, because whenever there's an update to both the MainWP software and the child theme plugin, the child plugin, you want to make sure that's always up to date to avoid any kind of problems with security. So we say continue. Then we've got the notifications. So what do you want to do with notifications? You can see, do you want to receive important email notifications from your dashboard? It's up to you, but I would recommend that you do, because obviously if something goes wrong, especially if you're doing uptime monitoring and backups and all those kinds of things, you'd want to be notified if there's a problem, especially if you're working with clients. So it's obviously worthwhile making sure you have that enabled. And if you want to have this go through to multiple email addresses, if you're working in an office and you've got multiple points of contact that will be dealing with making sure that the websites are all up to date and operating at their optimal levels, you can add additional emails in here. It's also worth noting that these are not sales emails. These are specific just to your MainWP dashboard and the websites and the services you have associated with it. So it's highly recommended that you say yes, you want to use that, but obviously it's entirely up to you how you want to proceed. So we'll click on continue. Next thing to do is go through into the backups. So are you planning to use the MainWP for backups? Now, we'll take a look at backups in its own section inside this video. And like I say, there's timestamps in the sections below. So if you want to jump through to any of the given points, by all means use those and jump around as you need to. So if you are going to use this for backups, you need to enable this option, and we can link this through to other different services like SWS and all those kinds of things. We can set it up with various different kind of third-party plugins to deal with backups. So we'll say yes, we are, and then you can see it says backup systems can be changed later at any time, and we can click and you can see we have a couple of options. All of these are using free extensions. However, that doesn't mean that the service you're going to use is necessarily free. Most of these will have a free option, but if you want to utilize more of their services for more storage, more sites and so on, then they may incur additional charges. So it's worth bearing that in mind when you choose whatever backup option you want. But like I say, none of this is written in stone. You can come back at any point and change these inside the MainWP dashboard itself. So for now, I'm going to just disable that. And we're going to say continue, because we'll add that in later independently. So the next section is the WP cron. Now, if you don't know what a cron job is, which might sound a little bit weird and a bit confusing, all it really means is you can set things up on your server to automatically run at given times. So you may say that you want to run a specific function at 12 p.m. every single day, or you may say you want to do another function every minute of every day. That's what a cron job does. It's something that's set up on the server to automatically run different things, different scripts, different actions, and things along those lines. So you can see we've got the MainWP relies on a built-in WordPress file called wpcron.php, which, like its name suggests, is part of the normal install of WordPress. This is used to trigger scheduled events. So saying, however, since we suggest that you install your MainWP dashboard on a fresh, dedicated site, it's not really going to get any traffic. So this may not do what you want it to do. It may not trigger these actions. So it says you can use scheduled tasks such as automate updates may not be triggered in a timely manner. So if that is going to be the case, they say what you should do is set up cron jobs to regularly trigger these different actions you want. So you can see it says click here to authorize uptime robot, and that will then set things up and automatically do what you need it to do in the background, not being reliant upon users actually going on and visiting your website to trigger those actions. Now, as this is a demonstration site, I'm not going to worry about that because, like I say, I'm not too bothered about these actions being triggered because we're just showing you how to use this particular tool. However, if you click on to authorize uptime robot, if you don't have an account, you can set one up inside there. And if we do a quick search for uptime robot, you can see we've got free website monitoring, and it'll start monitoring in X number of seconds, and it gives you 50 monitors checked every 5 minutes, totally free. So if you're not running tons and tons of monitoring actions, you don't have hundreds of sites on there, then you could probably get away with using the completely free option. All you need to do is sign up and authorize that as part of the process. So we come back into the wizard. As long as you've signed up for an account, if we click to authorize uptime robot, a new window will pop up asking you to authorize it or create a new account. Then you can go through the process of creating that account and linking it through to your your MainWP. So I'm going to say continue. And then we've got the finish option. So it says your main dashboard in MainWP dashboard is ready. We're ready to start managing our sites. Let's just click on that to jump over to the actual main dashboard itself. And there we go. There's our MainWP dashboard. We're going to take a look at how we can start to use this, and I'm going to go through the key things that you're going to do. Like taking a look on the left-hand side, we've got sites and posts and themes and plugins and extensions and all manner of really useful things. So in this video, for the rest of it, I'm going to show you how these different tools and functions work so you can start utilizing MainWP to manage your WordPress websites. So the next thing we're going to look at are the options to expand what you can do with MainWP. And there are quite a few different options available. Some of these are free, some of these are things you'd have to pay for, but depends on what you want to do, whether you want to use the paid ones. Like I say, throughout this video, we're just going to concentrate on free options that still give you a ton of functionality. So let's take a look at what's available to us and how we can go about installing these and start using them as part of our MainWP setup. Now, before we take a look at all the built-in tools, there are more things we can access when we want to work with MainWP. There are free extensions that expand some of the things we can do, and there are also paid extensions. Now, I'm not going to cover any of the paid extensions in this video. You can take a look at those, and if you think there's something you need to have as part of your setup, then by all means go ahead, purchase that, and set things up. But let's just jump over to the extensions section and take a look at some of the things we have available. So if you open that up, you can see we can browse all of our MainWP extensions. Now, to access these and install them, you need to set up a free account at MainWP. And again, like I say, this is a completely free account, whether you're using paid subscription or paid extensions or free extensions, you just have to have that to install them into MainWP. And it's a pretty simple and painless affair. You simply select what you want, click install, job done. So I'm going to add my login details. I'm going to verify my login just to make sure everything's okay. And you see my login info is valid. Now if I browse all the MainWP extensions, I can just browse everything that's available to me. So once I'm logged in, if I want to, I can simply come over and click on install extensions, and this will open up my account with anything that I've purchased or any of the free options that I've gone through the purchase process. Now this is something you have to bear in mind. Even though there are a ton of free extensions, you still have to go through the purchase process because that kind of associates those particular extensions with your account. Now, once you've verified your account, you'll see that the message disappears on the top of the right-hand side. And now if we click on Install Extensions, that will open up a pop-up that lists all of the extensions that are available, both free and paid for options. And then anything you purchased, like I say, whether they're the free versions or whether they are paid for, will be listed and available to you to install. So you can see under Administrative, I've got the MainWP Custom Dashboard extension and the MainWP Advanced Uptime Monitoring option. Let's just choose the MainWP Advanced Uptime Monitoring option. Click Install, and then that's going to go through, install the extension, and do everything I need. So I don't need to even bother doing anything. I can just choose what I want, hit that option to say Install, and then it's installed. So as we can see now, it's now been installed successfully. So if I want to add any more in, or if I wanted to purchase any, I can grab those from here. So we can close that down. If I want to take a look at more information about any of those, I can take a look quite easily. Now we'll come back to activating this license a little later on. I'll show you how to do that. But if you want to take a look at all the extensions that are available, we can just simply hop over to the mainwp.com website. And under there, you've got MainWP extensions. You're going to click on that. And that's going to take us through, and you can see they're all organized down into the various different types of extension that they are. If we want to look at just the free ones, we can click on that and we can take a look at just the free options. So you can see things like WP Vivid Backup for MainWP. So if you're using that as your backup tool of choice, then you have a free plugin you can link through to your MainWP account. Now where it says third party, what this means is that it's not developed by MainWP, it's developed generally by the developers of the particular tool that you're using. For example, WP Vivid in this example. And you can see there's a lot of different options like Advanced Uptime Monitoring, like we've just installed, Backup WordPress, Backup or Back WPTuts or whatever it's called, Clean and Lock, Custom Dashboard, Security, Updraft Plus, and so on. So you can see there's a lot of third-party plugins, a lot of free plugins, a lot of plugins developed by MainWP, a ton of free ones. So I recommend taking a look through there and seeing things that you think are going to be useful for you, and also whatever you choose to use as your backup option. If that's what you're going to do, you'll tend to find there's probably going to be a plugin there developed either by MainWP or by the third-party developer to actually allow you to link the two things together. Okay, so once you've done that, when you've got your plugin installed, you need to jump over to your account, and from there you can grab the API key. So all you need to do is come in, click on API keys, and that's going to give you a list of all of the different purchases, like I say, free or paid for, and give you the API keys that you need. So what I'm going to do is jump back over here, and you can see I'm going to put in the API license key. I'm going to put in the email address that's associated with this account. Then we're going to hit activate license, and that should go through the process of activating it. And we can see now the extension license is activated successfully. So we now have that new additional functionality built into MainWP. So if we go into the Advanced Uptime Monitor, you'll see we have the plugin installed, and we can now link this through to our Uptime Robot. Now, Uptime Robot, again, offers a free plan, which you can take a look at. It's one I use myself, and it's a great way to monitor the uptime of any site that you're running, and then get notified if there's a problem with that site, if there's any downtime and so on. So when you have a mission critical site, like an e-commerce site or something that you really don't want to have any downtime, and if there is downtime, you want to be notified immediately, then Uptime Robot is something that you can utilize to do that. So we'll take a look at that a little later on, how we can link that through, and I can show you how that works. But for now, this is basically how we go about installing the extensions, the free versions, the paid for ones, and how that whole process basically works. So MainWP wouldn't be a lot of use to us if we couldn't connect it to our sites, and thankfully MainWP makes this very, very simple. We can use a free plugin that just links your website through to your MainWP account, and in this stage we're going to take a look at doing just that. So when you're ready to connect your new site, it's very, very easy. All you need to do is go to the site where you want to connect through to your MainWP account, come into the plugin section, and we're going to add a new plugin. So what we're going to do is add new, and choose MainWP. Search for that, and the first option is MainWP Child. So we're going to say install now, let that go through the process of installing, we'll activate it, and then we'll go through and link this through to our main account. So there we go, that's downloaded, installed. Let's activate that. Once we've activated it, we can go through and set everything up. So once we've activated it, we get a big notice at the top telling us we need to install this or connect this through to our MainWP dashboard. Now, there are a couple of ways in which you can do this, but the easiest way is to make sure that we have a unique security ID which we can generate as part of this process. That means that no one else can accidentally add our site to their MainWP account and potentially cause problems. Now, the chances of this are pretty slim, but it's an extra step that I would recommend you take. So you can see, if you want to find out how to do it, you can just click on this link to take you through and show you, or we can just go through to the MainWP child settings. So let's click on that, go through to the settings. Once we're inside there, we've got 4 different tabs. What we're interested in right now is require unique security ID. I'm going to check that and hit save changes. That will then refresh the page and give us this unique security ID for this specific site. We're going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to our dashboard. So when it's inside the dashboard for MainWP, we're going to come to the top and say new site. We're going to click on there. And we can now go through the process of adding this site in. So the first thing they want to know is what's the URL to the site we want to add. So I'll go ahead, fill out the site URL, the administrator username, and add a site title in for this. And then the final thing we need to do is simply add in that unique key. So you can see we are underneath the optional settings, unique security ID. We're going to drop that inside there. And then we can take a look at grouping these sites together. So if we're dealing with personal sites, or we're dealing with WooCommerce sites or client sites, or however you want to organize things, you can do that inside MainWP. Now you can do it when you add a new site in, or you can do it retrospectively. Both methods are very, very simple. So you can see if we click, there's nothing actually added there. And we'll take a look at the grouping, how you do that a little later on its own dedicated stage as part of this tutorial. So for now, we're going to leave that as it is. We take a look underneath, then we've got advanced options, and as their name suggests, most of these are optional. So if you're using an SSL certificate, which realistically you should be on every site you use, you can say you want to verify that certificate is valid. Then you can say what SSL version is it, and again, I would recommend, unless you know what you're doing, just leave it as auto detect. If you want to, you've got HTTP username and password, and you can force IPv4 optional options, and if I'm honest, just leave them as they are. Just leave everything as is on there. Hit test connection, and provided all the data we put in is all relevant, and we've got that plugin installed for the child theme or the child site, everything then should go through and connect successfully. So you can see it tells us everything is perfectly fine. We'll hit close on there. Our site is now ready. We can hit add site, and that will go through the process of adding our site. You can see it tells us it's successfully added that to our dashboard. And now if we come back over to our overview, we'll find inside there, we can see if we've got any updates relevant to that particular site or any other sites we've got on there. And if we want to make sure that everything is up to date, we can hit the sync dashboard with child sites. So we'll click on that, let that run through. Any sites that we have will be listed underneath there, and it'll synchronize with those sites and tell us if there's anything that needs to be updated or any problems. So with that in place, go to our sites, or we can say manage sites, and you can see there's our site. So there's our foodie blog, there's the link to it. Any updates are available, what type of updates they are, whether they're WordPress core files, plugins, or themes, the last time this was synchronized, the PHP version that's being used. So if you're running multiple different sites, possibly on different servers, you may have differing versions of PHP. Well, you can find out exactly what version is on there. And if you're using this with last posts, you can find out the last date that something was posted to it, add notes. And if you're using any kind of uptime monitoring like that uptime robot, we can see exactly the uptime section inside there. We've also got options at the end by clicking on the 3 little dots, and you can see there we can sync our data from there as well. So this gives us a sort of bird's eye overview of exactly what's going on with our sites. So with that side of things all done, we've now got to the process of linking our site through into our MainWP dashboard. If you want to add more and more sites, the process is exactly the same. So all you need to do is repeat that on all the sites you want to link in, and you are done. So now that we've seen how to add sites, how do we go about the process of actually organizing these? Because it's great to have 1 or 2 sites in it, but when you start to have 30, 40, 50 sites, and you have sites for yourself, for your clients, and all kinds of different things, being able to group these together is going to be a godsend. And in this step, we're going to take a look at doing just that. So now we've installed our plugins, we've gone through and added a site in. That's great when we have 1 or 2 sites, but how about organizing things? Well, like I said in the previous stage, grouping things together is very, very easy. If we expand the sites option, you can see we have an option inside there that says groups. Click on that, and that'll take us through into the group settings. Now currently we have no groups added in. So what we're going to do is add our first group, and then we'll see how we can associate that with a site. So let's say we're going to create a new group, and from this we're going to call this client sites. We'll say save group, and we've now added that in. If we want to, we can rename it or we can edit it. If we click on edit, you can see we can go through and link what sites we want to inside that particular section. So we click on that, we can just say save selection, and we've now added that particular site or group of sites into our client sites grouping. So now that we've seen how to use a group and how we can link that through to a site we've already created, let's go and add another site in and link it through at that point where we group this in directly inside that stage. So what I'm going to do is come back in. I've already gone ahead, installed all the data that I need to actually link that site through. Now in the group section, we can click on there and you can see client sites is now available. We can click on that, come down and say test connection just to make sure everything is working correctly. There we go. And we say add site. That's now gone through and added that and also linked it through into our groups. So now we come into our group section. You can see there's our client sites. What we can do is we can just edit group, and you can see there's our two sites linked directly inside there. So it's very easy to do it either after you've added the site or during the process of adding sites. And like I say, this is one of those things that the more sites you have, the more useful this becomes when you want to organize everything in a much more logical fashion than just having everything lumped into one simple, a large amount. So managing updates, rolling out changes and things along those lines, that's one of the key reasons why we'd use a tool like MainWP. So this step, we're going to take a look at what we have available and how we can use that to just streamline the whole process of updating themes, plugins, installing plugins, users, and a whole ton of other things. So this is where you're going to find you spend a lot of your time inside your MainWP dashboard. So let's take a look at how we can use all the tools that are available to us right now. So now we have a couple of sites linked through. Jump into the update section and you can see that we now have a couple of updates that we can perform as part of MainWP. And this is probably what most of the work you're going to do is going to entail. It's going to be updating WordPress core files, plugins, themes, and translations. So as you can see, looking at the update section on the overview, we've got two updates. We could hit the update everything, which would update every plugin, theme, core, translation across the entire board, which is something that I would recommend not doing. Because if there's something goes wrong, then all of your sites could be affected. So it's much better to make sure you only do this one at a time on a site-by-site basis and potentially on a plugin, theme, translation, or WordPress update basis. Now you can disable this inside the settings, and I would recommend that you do that. So before we move on, let's take a look at how you can disable that update everything option so you don't accidentally hit that and then update everything and end up with a ton of sites that all have a problem. We come over to the settings option and simply click on the screen options. That'll open up another window where we can fine-tune and tweak how the interface is displayed. The first option you can see is hide the update everything button. I'm going to check that just to remove that. You can still use update everything in a slightly different context. So for example, you may have a plugin that's used on multiple sites that you know is safe to update. Then you could hit update on all of the sites, but it doesn't operate across every site and every plugin and every theme and all those kinds of things. Then we can go through and say, how do we want to lay the widgets out? So if you are using a much larger screen, you could set things to display in 3 columns or leave it as 2 if you're on a smaller screen. You can also hide any unwanted widgets. So if you're not monitoring your sites, for example, you could disable the monitors option, recent pages, recent posts, and so on. So you can tweak this to get exactly what you want. And it's also got the user snap button at the bottom, which we can enable or disable. So you can see the user snap button will show in the MainWP header. Up to you. We're going to say save settings, and you can see that now gets rid of that large button that allows us to update everything. However, like I say, you can see we still have an update all if we want to use that. And we can use that on a plugin, theme, translation, core files update, or we can use it on a website basis. So we'll take a look at that in a little moment. So now we can see all the different things that are going on. We can see recent pages, recent posts on our sites, which site is associated with, the connection status. You can see we currently have 2 sites that are connected, 0 that are disconnected. We also have security issues, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But that's quite useful. It'll take a look at your sites and see common security issues, and you can correct those directly inside MainWP. And pretty much all of them, all bar 1, if I'm not mistaken, you can undo if you find you have an adverse effect and your site goes offline or has a problem. The only one you can't is the README file that's part of WordPress, and I can't imagine that deleting that is going to have any real problem because WordPress itself doesn't actually use it. Okay, so we can see this is our basic overview. If we jump to the updates section, inside there we now get a much cleaner, streamlined interface that shows us WordPress updates, plugins, themes, translations, any abandoned plugins that have updates, and abandoned themes that have updates. So you may have a plugin that you know has a problem and you don't want to update it, or a theme or so on, which isn't recommended, but there are going to be times where that is something you are going to come across. Well, what you can do is you can ignore those if you want to, or you can have them set up as abandoned. It's up to you. So let's take a look. We've got broken down on the section underneath. We can see we've got plugins, the number of updates, whether they're trusted, and we can click to expand those out, and we can find out what version, what website, what we're running, what the latest version is, and we can ignore it or we can update it. So currently under the Jet site that I've got, part of MainWP, you can see we're running Jet test is the site, the version of Elementor is 2.84 and the latest is 2.85. Well, we can say let's update that now. That's going to say to disable update confirmations, go to settings. Well, that's fine. We'll just say yes. So that's going to go through an update, and you can see it's now telling us it's updating. Please wait. So that's going to go through the process of downloading, check the update is being completed. Providing everything is okay, it's going to come back and tell us that that's been done. If we want to, we can then jump over to the WordPress admin for that specific site just to check things out. We'll do the same thing then for Jet Engines. We'll expand that out, and again, you can see it shows us what website, what version we're running, what the latest version is, tells us whether it's trusted or not. So we'll say update now on there as well, and we'll say yes, we're happy with that. So that's going to go through the process now of updating everything, and we have everything up to date. So we'll sync our dashboard with our child themes. You can see we now have 2 sites listed inside there because you've added the second site in. Close that down, and you can now see that refreshes all the data at the top, and we have no updates across the entire board. So it's very, very easy to go through the process of updating and seeing exactly what's due to be updated, what site it's on, what version we're running, and all those kinds of good things. Now, alongside the updates option inside this just updates panel, we can, if we want to, come to the left-hand side, and we've got each of those key sections, things like plugins, themes, and so on, broken down with additional options. So let's just say the plugins as an example. Click to open that up, and you can see we can manage plugins from here. So we can click, go in there, and we can manage any of the plugins on any of the sites. So we come over to this, you can see we've got sites and groups. So this again is where the grouping option comes in very handy. We can click on groups, and we can choose all of the client sites without having to go to the sites option and choose them one by one. So once you start to group things together, it just makes the whole process of selecting things quickly and easily and doing bulk actions or just doing repetitive things very, very quick and easy. Like I say, when you've got a couple of sites, it's not really a big deal. But when you have 20, 30, 50, 100 sites, it just makes life considerably easier. You can also come in and you can filter things. So if you want to type in, you can filter and search against the various different sites you have. You've also got, you can select the status, so you can choose active or inactive. So this plugin needs to be inactive in order for it to be activated or deleted. So you can do things like activate, deactivate plugins and so on, and the same with themes and so on. So it's very easy to go through and choose things. Let's choose a group. We'll choose client sites. And once we do that, we can now choose bulk actions and things to do. So you can see what we can do is with the plugins, we can click on there, we can say active. So this is going to filter through and find all the client sites with the active plugins. Once you set your filters and your searches and all those kinds of things, just hit show plugins, and that's going to go through then and show you all the plugins that are installed on any of those sites, any of those groups of sites and so on. So you can see we currently have 2 sites set up underneath the group of client sites. It tells us all the plugins and the versions we're running inside there. And you can see they're all selectable. So we can easily come through and choose, if we want Elementor Pro, for example, we can choose all the Elementor Pros on all of our sites inside the client sites grouping, and then we can do bulk actions. So we can come into there, we can see we've got bulk actions, we can deactivate and we can ignore updates. So it's quite useful to do this kind of thing if you've got a lot of sites and you want to disable a plugin or you want to stop it from being updated or any of those kinds of things. You can use this option to finally go through and grab every one of those plugins, every one of those themes, and do something to it. So it's quite useful to do things like that. And again, you can do things like select all, select none. So select all will select everything. And we say install to selected sites. So we can do various different things. So it's a very powerful way of being able to go through and select sites, filter sites, and then do things to it based on plugins and themes, and also with users. So you can do the same kind of thing under the user section. You can see you've got groups. We can search client sites. We can select a role. So you can say administrators, and then you can do things like search options and so on and so forth. So it's very, very useful if you want to pull out information and data and then do things to that data based upon the search criteria that you apply to it. So that's basically how we can go through and manage the updates and how we can manage all those kinds of things. So now that we've seen how we can add sites and manage plugins and all those kinds of things, what about backing up our sites? Now you may be reliant upon your hosting company doing incremental backups for you, and that's perfectly fine. However, it's always good to have a certain level of redundancy. So let's just say, for example, that your site goes down or one of your client sites go down and there's a problem with your hosting company and you need to move quickly. Well, this is where having your own dedicated backup setup is really going to pay dividends. So if you want to use things like Dropbox or Google Drive and all those kinds of things, we have access to doing that. And there are a ton of different plugins and services that we can tap into, both free versions and paid for plans. Today, we're going to be using WP Vivid. Now, I've already covered this in its own dedicated video, so if you want to learn more about this plugin and the kinds of things it can do and how to set it up, I'd recommend taking a look at that, and I'll drop a link in the description below so you can check that out. Today I'm just going to show you the bare bones of how to do this and how we link this through to our MainWP dashboard. So instead of us having to log into our website, we can do it all inside MainWP. Again, like I say, this is a free option and there are other options available which I'd recommend you take a look at. So let's jump into MainWP again and let's take a look at how we set up this whole backup process. Now, another very useful feature when you're working with MainWP is the ability to link it through to various different third-party services and plugins that allow you to back up your software, back up your plugins, back up your database, and all those kinds of things. For this example, we're going to be using WP Vivid. I've already covered how to use WP Vivid in its own dedicated video. If you'd like to check that out, the link is in the description below, so you can take a look at how the plugin works and how you can set it up. And the example I've used in there is how to link it through to Dropbox. And that's exactly what we're going to do this time. So it's already been set up in pretty much exactly the same way. So what I've done is I've come out of the MainWP dashboard back into our normal copy of WordPress where MainWP is installed to, and then we're going to install the WP Vivid backup for MainWP plugin. This is a third-party plugin, and that's the reason why we do it. We install it in a slightly different way. So we'll just install it like we normally would any other plugin as part of WordPress, not through the MainWP dashboard. So once that's installed and activated, we should then be able to link the two programs together and start working. So let's activate this. Once that's activated, we should then be able to go in and start setting things up. Okay, so we're going to come back into MainWP. Once we're inside there, we can now go through and take a look at the extensions, and you can see there's our WP Vivid backup MainWP. We can click to open that up, and inside there we've got a couple of options. We've got the backup dashboard, the schedule, the remote, and the settings. Now after we hit the sync dashboard with child sites, you'll see we now get the information about any of the sites that we have as part of MainWP using the MainWP child, and also have the WP Vivid software installed and set up. That was a mouthful. So you can see we have the foodie blog, which is the only one that I've set it up on. We can view the site name, we can view the URL, we can view a report that'll cover any of the backups or anything else we've done as part of WP Vivid backup. We can check the latest version or we're running, the status, general, and we can back up now if we want to using the default settings. If we jump over into the schedule, you can see what we can do inside there is we can choose when we want to schedule backups. If we want to switch over to WP Vivid Backup Pro, if we purchase that, then you can switch over to that and hit save. However, we can also do things like enable the backup schedule, what the schedule is going to be, what we want to back up, whether it's a database and files, all files excluding database, or just the database. And then where we want to send the backups to. Do you want to keep them as part of the local storage, or do we want to send them to the remote storage, in this example, Dropbox? Remote will show us the remote storage options and information, and the settings allow us to configure any of the settings we want. So we've got things like number of backups to be retained, calculate the size of the files and folders, name your folder, and so on. and in the advanced sections, you can see we've got more options in there. Now, this isn't really a case of going over what you can do with WP Vivid Backup, because this just basically mimics the settings you have inside there with a couple of extra things that'll work inside MainWP. So let's go back to the dashboard. Let's click on Backup Now. And what that does is that'll take us over to what looks very similar to the plugin itself when you've got that installed in any site. We can choose the type of backup we want to do, whether it's database and files, WordPress files or database only, and whether we want to store this locally or whether we want to send it to our remote storage location. We're going to choose remote storage. You can see Dropbox is the only option we have at the moment, but if you had alternative options, you could choose those. This backup can only be deleted manually. In other words, we can't remotely delete it from here. So we'll say we're okay with that. Then the backup schedule and any backups we may have created previously will be listed at the bottom. So if we hit backup now, providing everything is in place, that's now going to go through the process of backing that site up and sending all those files to the relevant storage location on Dropbox. As you can see, it gives us some information about the database size, the file size, overall total size, and so on, which will be updated once the entire process is completed. And we've also got the ability to cancel this if we've done something by mistake and we want to cancel out of it, and a log to see exactly what we've done. So we're going to let that run through and complete the backup. Once that's done, I'll show you how that's gone and uploaded everything into the relevant location in Dropbox, and we've got our backup set up, but all controlled inside the MainWP dashboard. And there we go, that's the backup completed. If I bring in my Dropbox folder, you can see there's the backup already uploaded. Now, depending upon the size of the file that you're working with and the speed of your server and a million other different things, that will kind of dictate the speed in which this whole process works. But if you set it up as an automated backup, then you don't have to worry. You can let this run overnight or an off-peak time where you have less traffic, which means your server should be just a little bit quicker, and the whole process should be done when you wake up in the mornings. So that's pretty much all there is to running the backup side of things. Now, there are other options available. WP Vivid Backup is not the only option we have. There are other ones there. So again, like I say, try this out with your preferred option, see how you get on with it, but the whole process is pretty painless. Now, another area that MainWP makes incredibly easy is rolling out mass updates. Now, there's various different kinds of updates you may want to do. They can be plugins, they can be themes, they can be user details. Plus, there's also the ability to easily add new posts or pages throughout all of your sites, or pick and choose which sites you want to roll that out to. So if you had something like a privacy policy that was the same across all of your company websites and you didn't want to log into each one, then this is a way of doing that very, very simply. So let's take a look at all those different options now inside the MainWP dashboard. Now, another thing you may want to do across multiple sites is roll out the same update. Now, I'm not talking about plugins, I'm talking about content updates. So let's just say you run multiple sites as a business and your privacy policy has to be updated. And it's the same across all those sites. Well, instead of having to log into each individual site, you could use MainWP and roll that out to every single site. So what you could do is you can come into the posts or pages. So for this example, we'll use pages. Expand that out. You can see we've got two options. We can manage pages or we can add a new page. If you click on manage pages, you will see we've got the same kind of filtering as we had earlier on. We can choose groups or sites. Let's just choose groups. We'll say all client sites. The status, then we can go through and say published. We'll click on that and you can choose multiple different statuses if you want to. You could search based upon a keyword, your title and body, a date range, the maximum pages to return, and then we can hit show pages. So this will then go to the sites as part of that group and find out all the different pages we have inside there. We could then come in if we want to. You can see we can edit, trash, view, or go to the WP admin for that specific site straight to that page. So what we can do now is we can select any of these entries and we can come and use the bulk actions to move to trash, restore, or delete permanently. So we can manage the content directly from MainWP across all the sites, or we can roll out a new content to all of the sites we choose. So instead of manage pages, let's say add new. And from there, you can see we now get the normal WordPress editor, plus the filtering options on the right-hand side, and some other options for how we want to deal with this particular content. So what we can do is we could create a new page, and we could call this, let's just say privacy. It doesn't really matter what I'm going to call it, because it's just an example. So we'll say privacy. What sites do we want to go onto? Well, we'll say we want to put this onto all of our client sites. Do we want to set a featured image? Do we want to allow discussions and so on? So all the normal things you'd expect to see as part of a normal WordPress post or page. Come down then, we're going to say we can set this to draft or pending review. So this will have to be confirmed by the site owner before it can actually go live. So we'll say pending review. You can see then we've got the visibility options and the publish options. So you can see immediately or schedule. So it's up to you how you want to deal with that side of things. So we'll say immediately. Any custom fields you want to apply, the slug and so on. So some basic parameters. So you can easily drop in some content. So we can just say privacy policy test. Doesn't really matter what I'm going to do. Now once we've done that, we can say publish. And this will then roll that out to all the sites that meet that criteria. So you can see it says Foodie Blog has had a new page created, and so has the Jet test page. So incredible, you just published a new page to 2 sites in 1 second. Well, we don't want to brag on Twitter about that. And we'll close that down. So now if we come over to one of those sites, we can take a look at that post and how it's, or that page and how it's been added in. So I jumped over into the pages section now of one of our sites that's linked to MainWP, and you can see there's our page, privacy. Last modified 25 seconds ago, and is set to be pending. So if we view that page, we can easily come in and edit it. And you can see there's all the details. If we set up anything like featured image and so on, all of that data would be inside there. So now every site that's linked through has this page added into it, set as pending or draft, whatever you set it up as, and then you can confirm and publish that page from there. So that's a very quick and easy way of being able to roll out the same content across multiple different sites. But we're not just limited to only dealing with pages and posts. We can do the same thing with themes and plugins and users and so on. So we come into the theme section, you can see we've got install. So we click on install. This will give us the same thing again. So it'll show us all the different kinds of themes we can install. We can search for themes, or we can upload our own dedicated zip file. So if you've purchased a theme that you want to use, or one that's not on the WordPress repository, then you can easily grab that and upload it. So it's up to you how you deal with it. And then all you've got on the right hand side is the same way of filtering out and choosing what sites that are part of your MainWP account you want to link these through to and upload that particular theme to or plugin. So you can see again we've got sites, groups, filters, all those kinds of things, installation options to overwrite existing version if that's already on the site itself. So you can see you can use this option to do themes. We've also got plugins we can do the same thing on, so we can say install plugins if we want to do that. We also have the option for auto updates. So if we choose auto updates either from the top or from the left hand side, you can see if we come into that section, we can choose what we want to auto update. So you can see it says MainWP auto updates feature is a tool for your dashboard to automatically update plugins or themes or whatever you choose that you trust to be updated without breaking your child sites. Now personally, I would not recommend doing this. It's there if you want to use it, but anything that automatically updates can have the potential for having a problem, and then it just creates a bit of a headache. So I would recommend not to do that. You can see it says plugin status to search. Again, we can choose active and inactive, or active or inactive. We can search options from there. We can choose from trusted, not trusted, ignored, and so on. And then we can show the plugin so we can use keywords and so on. So like I say, this isn't something I would recommend you do, but the option is there should you have a need to use it and you want to quickly just have automatic updates running in the background. If you do decide to go down the route of doing this, I would highly recommend you have the backup option set up to automatically backup, and also have the uptime monitoring. So if anything happens to your site, you'll get notified very, very quickly that there's a problem. You can then come in and deal with it, restore from a backup if you need to, and get yourself back up and running in double quick time. So like I say, just a little bit of a warning should you decide to go down the route of using these auto updates on anything like plugins or themes. Now, the last thing any of us want for ourselves or our clients' websites is downtime. But how would we know if there's a problem on our website if we have no way of monitoring it? Well, in this step, we're going to take a look at using a free service that gives us up to 50 websites, and we can link that directly through into our MainWP dashboard and be notified by email whenever there's a problem in 5-minute increments. So if we have a problem, the maximum downtime before we get notified could just be a couple of minutes. So let's take a look at how we use this now, how we set everything up, and what we need to do to get that uptime monitoring set up and working for our sites. Now, when it comes to monitoring your websites to make sure that everything is online and if there's any problems you get alerted, then Uptime Robot is a great option, especially if you want to start off with a free plan. You can do just that, and once you've signed up, you can access your account, grab the API key and your email address you signed up. Once you've done that, you can easily come in and start monitoring your website. Now you'll find once you put those details in under the settings section for the Advanced Uptime Monitor, which is the plugin I showed you right back at the beginning how to install, you'll start to get some data coming through very quickly. As you can see, I've only got one site set up in here at the moment, and it's telling me the name of the site that's been monitored, the URL for it, the status currently, as you can see it's up, the type, which is a HTTPS, and then also the times and the uptime ratio for that particular site. So you can see over the period of time, I've had 100% uptime on the website. And as you can see, we've also got a sort of overview that you can quickly see. We've got 1 up, 0 down, 0 pending, 0 seam down, and 0 paused. So we can get an overview of all the different sites we'll have listed inside here. We've also got a couple of options on the right hand side. We can pause monitoring if we want to. We can find out some additional information. We can edit it, and we can also delete it from there. You can see we've got create monitor for all sites or create a new monitor. We've also got some bulk actions. So you can see we can start, we can pause, and we can delete. So it's a very simple plugin that links itself through to Uptime Robot, but it doesn't need to be complex. The whole point is that it monitors and lets you know if there's a problem with your website. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at that, especially if you want to start off with something that costs no money and you can start to utilize that. Then you've also got the recent events option. As you can see, we've got the uptime and we've got when it was started. So currently there's nothing else in there. There's no errors, there's no downtime. The duration since it was last sort of set up was 338 hours and 19 minutes. And in that period of time, I've had no downtime. And fingers crossed, that's the way it will stay. So if you're curious about setting up monitoring for your websites, then check out Uptime Robot and their free plan to start off with. I've got no affiliation, I've just tested it and I quite like it. So that's how we can go about dealing with the uptime monitoring side of things. Very simple, very straightforward, but also incredibly useful. Now, another area that can be something that can cause a problem is security. Now, I always recommend that every single site that you set up and run for yourself or your client has some form of security plugin active to make sure you minimize the risk of getting your site hacked or having any problems with it. But we can also tie this into some key things inside MainWP. So in this step, we're going to take a look at the options to go through, find out any security issues that are glaring problems, even if we're not using a security plugin, which, like I say, I would highly recommend that you do use one, but how we can use this to fix quite a few of those key typical problems, shall we say, that you may have when you install WordPress. So again, let's just jump over into MainWP and take a look at what we have available and how we can utilize this to increase the security of our websites. Now, there's one more area that I want to go over before we wrap this video up, and that's the security issues. Now, you can currently see that I got 14 security issues detected, and that's based upon all of the sites that we have installed as part of MainWP. So if we open those up and say, see the details, we'll go through and you can see we've got the different websites that we have, and we can see how many issues there are with each of those. We could, if we wanted to, just click on the fix all issues, but again, as always, I wouldn't recommend doing these sort of global updates and changes. It's better to take a look and review what's being called up and then deciding what you want to edit, delete, so on. So first of all, let's start off with the foodie blog, and let's click on the details. And we'll go in then and it'll go through and show us all the things that it considers to be security risks and things that we can easily update and fix directly inside MainWP to alleviate these. Now, depending upon the kinds of tools that you use for security as part of your website, part of your WordPress website, you may see some of these, all of these, or none of these. Different plugins like iTheme Security will allow you to deal with a lot of the things you can see being flagged up inside here. And normally on most of my sites, I'd have security installed. However, as these are demo sites, I don't have that. It's a good way for me to indicate to you the kinds of things that you can see and how we can quickly and easily deal with those. So, we currently have 7 issues to deal with. We've got various different things, and you can see it tells us exactly what the issue is, and we can fix it directly inside our MainWP dashboard. So the WP content, plugins, and so on, they're all directories that can be listed. Now, normally you wouldn't want that to be the case because you don't want nosy people and hackers to be able to see inside those folders. So all we need to do is click on Fix on there, and after a second or two, you can see that now updates and tells us that it's gone and made those changes for us. So we're doing this all remotely inside the MainWP dashboard. Now, most of these things are pretty much safe to go ahead and change. So I'm just going to say Fix All. Once that's done, you can see now that's updated. Now, the only thing that we can't revert, or in other words, unfix, is this option that says the README HTML file has been removed from the WordPress root. Like I said earlier on in this video when I mentioned this section, to be honest, you shouldn't have any issue with having that being removed because it's not a file that really is going to be used for most things inside your WordPress site. So don't worry too much about that, but if you did need to, you could simply put that back in there via FTP or via the sort of dashboard as part of your hosting and put that back into the root directory from a clean copy of WordPress just by downloading those files. Everything else can be reverted. Everything else you've sorted out inside here can be reverted by clicking on the unfix option. So you've got a two-way setting. So all you need to do is go through your sites, make sure all these things are addressed, and you're going to give yourself a good starting point. Now, as always, just take this exactly as that, a starting point for your security. Your WordPress security, your server security, your password security, all these things are things that you need to take into consideration either for yourself or for your client. But like I say, this is a good starting point, but use this in conjunction with good security as part of your WordPress copy, your server, and everything else that goes with it. Well, that's all I really wanted to show you with this section. It's a pretty simple, straightforward section. Just allows you to fix and update any of those kinds of problems. So that's how we can use MainWP to go through the process of monitoring, maintaining our website, updating things, and just generally speeding up the process of managing any of our WordPress websites. Is this something you've used yourself? Have you used something different? What are your thoughts on MainWP? Could you see yourself using this in the future? I'd love to get your feedback on what you thought of both this video, the content that's included, and also if you've used this service yourself. Drop those comments in the comment section below. Let's get a conversation started. As always, there's tons more content on the channel, and I'd recommend taking a look at some of the playlists and the videos you can see on screen right now. They're going to get you up to speed with some of the great things you can do with WordPress. As always, all the applicable links are in the description below, and don't forget there's timestamps for every single stage throughout this entire video. My name has been Paul C. This has been WPTuts. Until next time, take care.